football fans, well, they're getting a head start on their fantasy leagues. One of the most popular, ESPN Fantasy, is owned by Disney, the parent company of ABC News. But the time is now to do your research so your team can come out on top this season. Hopefully mine can do that too. So let's bring in Jared Smola. He's a lead analyst at Draft Sharks. Jared, thanks for coming on with me. What do you think accounts for the explosion in popularity of fantasy football?
I think it's just the chance to run your own team, right? We can all have our favorite NFL teams, but we have no, impact on how that team performs. I think a lot of times we think we can do better than the GMs of our favorite teams, and fantasy football is kind of a chance to prove that.
Now, you've won your league 3 years in a row. So what's your strategy going into a draft?
Yeah, a couple like basic tips I have for people that I think go overlooked a lot of times. The first one is just understand your league's scoring system and lineup requirements. That stuff has a big impact on how players are valued and how players should be ranked in your league. The other one, and I think this is the biggest one, is go after upside, chase upside. You can spend your first few picks on, quote unquote, safer players. But once you get to the later rounds of your draft, just swing for the fences, take guys who could be difference makers. You're going to end up dropping a lot of these guys anyways and using the waiver wire to, kind of rebuild your team. So later in the draft, just, swing for the upside, try to get those guys that are going to be true league winners.
Now, your latest article looks at fantasy risers and fallers. Who's catching your eye, and who should players really just not try to draft at all?
Yeah, Omarion Hampton is a guy who he's a rookie for the Chargers. Najee Harris, their veteran back, remains out after a July 4th fireworks accident that he suffered an eye injury. So if Harris is not ready for the start of the season, Omarion Hampton, super talented running back in a good offense that really, again, could be one of those fantasy league winners. Someone heading in the opposite direction for us is Chris Godwin, the wide receiver from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The news on him just has kind of gotten worse and worse all offseason. He needed a second surgery on the ankle he dislocated last year. Their GM said recently that they're not sure Godwin's going to be ready for the start of the season. So he's kind of heading down our rankings. And in the meantime, the Bucs rookie wide receiver Emeka Egbuka is heading up our rankings. He's the guy that's going to benefit most if Godwin is not ready for week 1.
All right, in my dynasty league, I kept Jamar Chase because he's been a beast for years, all right? And you guys are ranking him as the #1 slot for all positions. So make me feel good about myself. Why is that?
Yeah, Chase is pretty clearly the best player in fantasy football for us. Fantasy is kind of a meld of talent and opportunity. And Chase puts big check marks in both boxes. Might be the most talented wide receiver in the NFL. Plays for this Bengals offense that is always near the top of the league in pass attempts with an elite quarterback in Joe Burrow. So if you have the first pick in your fantasy draft, just take Jamar Chase and kind of go from there.
All right, you heard it. Chase first. Jared Smola, thanks a lot for that info.